Goose out of the 13th here. I am going to make kind of a rant real quick, but this is something that I thought of that was initiated by seeing a bit of gameplay on Twitter from a different player. I'll try to put the link to that clip over in the description, but this is in regard to piercing weapons and the way that they tend to reflect on bodies. So normally, and it's a little bit easier to do on the Gundam, you would actually hit it something like that, right? They actually go through. Let me double check that these don't die. Pretty easy. You hit like center mass here and they actually go through pretty easy. But in some cases, as I struggle to show my point here, like that, if you actually hit the gooch on this, because it has curvature and because it has a lot of really weird like angles and stuff on here, it's a little bit hard for it to actually go through without being deflected weird. But why does it do that in the first place, unless that's actually supposed to be the point of these suits? So you have curved armor versus more rectangular or like boxy armor with like hard angles, but generally a lot more like flat space to hit. There was another example that I showed on Twitter where if you hit the head, it also does really weird deflections. And the initial clip that this came from was more so an illustration of what happens when you hit really weird points on certain things. So for example, it hit the Jim Dominance's shield and it deflected weird, and as you saw just there, it deflected weird again and hit this way. So this is something that's not new. If you shoot really close to someone, it'll either pass through them like, you know, like that, like it's physically through his body and it's hitting the other guy, or if you do it at just the right spot, it'll hit him. But again, you saw it went off to the right. Sometimes it just veers seemingly out the front of the body, maybe. Like if I do this on the other side, let me look real quick. If I do this on the other side and get it inside the body. Huh. It is actually going all the way through in that case. So yeah, this is a really weird thing, specifically with piercing weapons. And I feel like the issue with this is that this is on targets that are standing still, right? And you're not consistently being able to pierce through reliably, which is the entire point of this rifle. I feel like it has a fast charge. It's able to pierce on both neutral and charge shot. The uncharged version of this is obviously a low impact way to make good damage on big groups of enemies. And in some of those instances, you probably won't notice that much. In fact, you'll probably see it hit a lot of things just because it's veering in weird angles and hitting things that it normally wouldn't be if it shoots straight. But the bigger issue becomes when you start looking at other reactions. So like you hit the hand, it's also going way out over here. So this is on suits that aren't moving. Obviously, you're going to have a lot of people dashing. You're going to have a lot of people holding different weapons that aren't straight out in front of them. If they get stunned by different things, they may also be at slightly different angles and cause different things. And I feel like in more recent times, this has kind of been circumvented by either having more weapons on the suit or piercing weapons not being just quick shots, but like Garobis, long streaming beams that do multiple hits. So even if it does it weird for a second, it won't actually be that bad. And in fact, there was an old clip, I want to say, of me doing it in like the 4 boosted, or seeing someone do it in a 4 boosted, where the entire beam, the whole beam just went bing and like went up into the sky, and it was like on a mountain or something like that. And for context, that was years ago. That was the longest time. This is a 4-year-old game, right? So there's a lot of time for a lot of instances of goofy shit like this to happen. And it's funny by itself, but it's a little bit tiring when it's consistently a thing. So especially when you don't have a lot of transparency about if what's happening here is intentional. If it's intentional, then that's fine, right? Whatever, some goofy armor angling World of Tanks War Thunder kind of shit, but with mobile suits. People call it that as it is, right? You know, War Thunder, but with mobile suits and, you know, the whole simulation-esque era idea. Honestly, I'd say this is a lot more arcadey than that in general. But, you know, whatever. But if they're actually going to do more suits that have things like this, especially in the future as we get into a lot of these in-betweener suits from like AOZ and other side stories and whatnot, I do kind of wonder if they're ever going to actually acknowledge this as either a feature or a bug. Because there have been other things that have happened, like Arctic Base, right? You attack certain areas in mid and your body would just like magnetize to the shuttle. When you do melee or when you tackle, you would just move inward. Even if you're trying to tackle off the platform, you would go towards the shuttle. And that was something that they actually recognized and fixed. But this is like literally I'm hitting the shoulder and it's going boop here instead of going all the way through. And obviously the closer that you are, the more chance you have of doing it just from like a pure like flipping situation as opposed to just like body deflection. And I find that like, so like another example, this has a really bad height issue, right? This is much bigger than the Gundam. So when I was saying before that if you hit center mass, typically you have an easier time of piercing, it's not doing it, right? And even if I aim a little bit higher, there's a very good chance that it still won't. Yeah, like it's still hitting this corner as opposed to that. Now it's easier to do it on this guy because his body's right here. And even in that case, I'm hitting his hand because his hand's in the way. So now that I'm here, it's hitting it. But the only reason it's hitting it is because his body is big enough for that to still hit his hand. And then it's going this way. I feel like a crazy person talking about this, right? Obviously in the grand scheme of things, in the time that you have in a match, you'll notice it and you'll probably be annoyed, but you have other shots of doing this, right? And this suit in particular has a whole other melee loop that it can do that's like really gross, and that's where a lot of its output comes from as well. But this isn't the only suit that has this version of the Fitting rifle. Obviously, like the Stealth V has this. I don't know if there are any other suits that will get something like this, but there are other guns that do this either on neutral shot or that do it on charge. Like one thing that I forgot was that the Ashimar actually pierces on charge. I saw a clip today of someone stopping a pilot from like fucking up the base by doing that, and I thought it was really cool. But again, all this shit that we're discovering now, you know, with this or like retreading about now, this because again, like I said, this isn't new, is something that guy would have to deal with if he was trying to do that to suits. And this is a really good deterrent on paper for people that are pursuing you, right? So you'd want that to be something that's reliable, especially when you're talking about this rifle that can actually pierce when, or not only pierce, but stun in 2 shots. So like in that case, I stunned the Gundam, but it deflected off of his body and went and didn't hit him for the second hit, even though it pierced on the first. And that's only a slight difference in aiming that caused that. So, I don't know, man. This sort of stuff kind of bugs me when it comes to games like this, especially games that, you know, in the past they tried to pass off as being more competitive, and they keep doing these Grand Prix tournaments and stuff with this game, even though they, you know, they're obviously showering a lot more attention on evolution and are trying to make that work, even infusing a bunch of money in the tournaments. But if they ever try to do that when this drops on PC, I don't think it's gonna be a good idea when even more simpler things like this either aren't shown with transparency to be part of the game as a feature, or if they're just some sort of like shortcoming either of the devs or the engine in terms of them being buggy or messed up. So that's just my 2 cents on this. Piercing is something that's been in this game for a little while, and I would hope that, you know, it's either been defined or refined, right? One of the two. Because there are obviously other aspects of this game that also have problems. This is just one of the more obvious ones to point out physically. But that's me done rambling for now. This is Gustav the 13th. I'll talk to you guys next time.